Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Ferrari HP Esports series. We are back once more, as we were earlier, on Assetto Corsa this time around, but this time we're heading to the European region. We arrive at the Nurburgring at Nurburgring in Germany, around a circuit that Jackie Stewart has dubbed the Green Hell. George Morgan here to bring you commentary of tonight's action. Joining me, as always, is Nina Jade Paul. And Nina, we saw some furiously fast racing earlier on, a few controversial moments here and there. At the end of the day, it wasn't to be Marcin Swiderek. Instead, it went to Andika Rama Milana, who would go on to take victory and also top the championship in his group in the Asian regions. He'll be heading to Ferrari World Yas Island, Abu Dhabi, but no doubt Marcin Swiderek gutted at the result.
Yeah, bad luck for Swiderek, but he gave us a great show, George. Really enjoyed watching him. Such a fun to watch. We had a fantastic showing in the Asia-Pacific region earlier, full of drama, chaos. The stakes are so high because remember, only one person gets to go through to the grand final. And the standings today are wide open, similar to like they were this morning in the APAC region. 9 points between first and second place in the standings.
Yeah, it's very tight at this stage, and I have a feeling that we're going to be thrown all sorts of question marks over the next next few races that we will have in front of us. And we're heading to Nurburgring, a track that is obviously very tricky. It's quite the shift. We're moving from a track like Laguna Seca into the Nurburgring, both of them rather technical, but while the elevation is still clear at Nurburgring, it's no way quite at the levels as to what Laguna Seca was. I think it has to be said, but still, it's very treacherous out there.
Yes, a technical circuit, some undulating parts of the circuit as well. I think what we saw earlier in the Asia-Pacific region is that these guys really need to try and nail their setup. We saw a lot of unstable, unsettled cars earlier, as people just making silly mistakes. The setup just wasn't right. So I think if any of the drivers got to watch the Asia-Pacific region this morning, then they would have made a note of that.
Yeah, definitely. I think from what we saw in terms of Marcin Swiderek's setup, it definitely looked a little unhinged while they were out there on track. And whilst obviously it suited him in terms of the qualifying, remember he went 4 for 4 in the qualifying, because just a little reminder, obviously they have 4 qualifying sessions here in this particular region throughout the entirety of the 2 rounds. Let's take you through that format structure, incidentally. 30 participants coming in from hot laps and regional qualifiers to make up rounds 1 and rounds 2 with 3 races apiece for all participants. And the top 5 from each region will go to the Ferrari HP Esports Series 2024 Grand Finals on the 5th of December at Ferrari World Yas Island, Abu Dhabi. The caveat being, though, however, only the top 1 will go through from AC, the top 2 from iRacing and Assetto Corsa Competizione. Obviously, because we're on AC tonight, it means that only one driver can move to the grand final on the 5th of December at Ferrari World Yas Island, Abu Dhabi. So we're going to have to find out now very shortly as to who's going to go through from the European region. We got a race format that we can take you through as well. This will decide the grids and also the race formats as a whole through the course of this evening. Race 1 decided by a qualifying session that will be taken place, and then race 2 will be decided by race 1's result. Grid 3 will be set by a second qualifying session, so we will have more qualifying to come. Obviously a little bit different to what we have seen already so far from other platforms, but that will decide then as to who's going to score what, and we'll find out as to who's going through to the grand final. Top 3 goes to the grand final, 1 from each region as a whole. So there we go, plenty on the line. It's going to be very tight, especially around Assetto Corsa, where of course it's quite a realm of mystery here. We'll take you through the region map as well. Of course, 3 regions make up our series. We kick things off, of course, with Asia Pacific region. We saw that earlier on today. Tonight we are at the European region, and then very soon we'll be heading to the Americas for the trip around Nurburgring in Germany. But yes, a truly global championship, and as we saw as well, a very fast, quick fire scenario for the drivers to deal with as well in terms of qualifying. There's not a lot of breathing space for qualifying, and also the races are relatively short as well, and we have 3 of them each round. And bear in mind, only 2 rounds through the course of one region as well on one platform, so that makes it very challenging, Nina.
Absolutely, and like you say, there's not a lot of room for qualifying, you know, with short sessions. So you've really got to go out there and attack the track as soon as you can. You can't waste time.
No, you can't. And like we said, truly global championship. Drivers coming from far and wide, as we say as well, because obviously we're here tonight with Europe, so we've got many different nations across Europe representing here this evening. Here is our calendar. We have already managed to amass our way through Imola, Watkins Glen and Laguna Seca, though we do have more to come from Summit Point, with the Americas region bringing us iRacing action on the 5th of October. That is, of course, coming up tomorrow. That's round 12, and that'll be out of the way. We do have, of course, one to come at Silverstone as well in 2 days' time when we go to the Americas region on Assetto Corsa Competizione. Tonight, of course, round 17 action. That is where we are at this stage. We've already crossed off the Asia Pacific region at Nurburgring. You saw that earlier on today, and the European region will be getting underway very shortly for round 17 here this evening. And then the final round, round 18, will be with you on the 19th of October, where you'll join me and Rory Alexander, and we'll take you through the Americas region, our final dance before we decide the final grid for Abu Dhabi. Ferrari World Yas Island, remember, at Abu Dhabi. It's going to be a tremendous journey. Obviously, there's been quite a long journey in many ways for some of the drivers, but nonetheless, they've all managed it brilliantly. We've seen lots of different action. We'll take you through the track map that we are visiting here this evening. Of course, like I said, Nurburgring is on the menu here tonight. As I said before, Jackie Stewart dubbing this circuit the Green Hell, and for good reason. There's plenty of challenges for the drivers to manage, many hairpins to try and dodge and weave your way through, much like the chicanes as well. The notorious one that, of course, we saw earlier on is at turns 14 and 15. Then, of course, you have the long straights that can obviously open up opportunities more or less on the run up through towards turn 14 and 15, coming out to turn 12 on the run up through towards the kink in the curve at turn 13 in the final sector of the lap. But also you have a chance heading in towards turn 1 and then in towards turn 2 at the arena section, but not forgetting turn 8, as you can see on the far left hand side, that little point on the track that can very much narrow up the circuit. If you have got that inside line, then you will very likely take that position. So plenty of opportunity. And we welcome many different categories racing here at the Nurburgring, and we've welcomed Formula One here in the past. Plenty of opportunity, but a lot of risk and reward as well, Nina.
Absolutely. I mean, there are high speed, medium speed, low speed corners, lots of overtaking opportunities, as we saw earlier in the APAC region as well. It's an iconic venue, George. It's a highly technical circuit. But with these 488 Ferraris, their mid-engine design really allows the car to get more grip when cornering, but we've seen how unsettled these cars can be, so it's still down to driver skill to just make sure the setup's good, the pace is good, and everything is good.
Yep, well, 5.148 kilometers around a single lap. That's 3.199 miles around the layout that we are taking. Obviously, no concerns with the Nordschleife here tonight. We will be sticking to our typical Grand Prix circuit that, of course, they use for races. More recently, the Eiffel GP that we saw not too long ago. Of course, that was around the realms of COVID-19 when that was hit, but obviously not something that we're concerning ourselves with right now. Of course, capacity of around 150,000 people. We get so many different championships coming here, and of course many of them adopting the Ferrari 488 that we're going to be witnessing here tonight. A little bit of a change of pace, moving from the 296 to the 488, so we're back on the 8 cylinders, Nina.
Yeah, absolutely. But this car, it's a great car. It can really attack the curbs. It's well-built car. You know, it's all very well attacking the curbs, but on exit, it's still about skill, George, whether you can stabilise the car early on to minimise the impact on acceleration. But it should be a really good race. I mean, a lot of the lap, you think about the next corner coming ahead. It's not just about brake, hit the apex and accelerate on exit. You must constantly be able to adapt your driving style and adapt the car to have a strong showing.
Yeah, it's absolutely well known that obviously the Ferrari 488 packs a punch down the long straights, and you will see that utilised, of course, this time around coming out of turn 16 in towards turn 1. You know, the drivers know exactly what to do where it comes to utilising it, but obviously they're all driving the same machinery, so all on an equal footing, as they say, but it's down to the drivers' pure skill in order to unlock these positions, and of course it's down to their pure pace where it comes to qualifying as well, and it's going to be such a short format around such a long circuit. So when you couple those two things, it leaves you very little lap to really run. I mean, at best you've got around 2 fast laps, Nina.
Yeah, exactly. There's a very limited room for error, and you don't really want to start at the back of the pack or in the midfield because, yes, overtaking is possible here, George, but you don't want to spend your whole race working your way up to the front of the grid. You want to start there so you can just go off into the distance.
Yeah, you certainly do. Now, coming into tonight's event, Jack Olivier is the one to watch. 58 points against his name, of course, leading the championship. Actually took pole position back at Laguna Seca in our opening one. We have yet to have a driver take back-to-back poles. Certainly a vastly different affair to what we saw from Marcin Swiderek, who went back-to-back in terms of pole positions, taking 4 out of 4. Jacques Olivier took the first one back in round 1 at Laguna Seca. And the second one went to race 1 winner, Sven Gielhode. And whilst, of course, he took pole in round 1, Laguna Seca race 3, he finished 4th. So it was almost roles reversed between he and Jacques Olivier that time, because when Jacques took pole, it was Sven that won. When Sven took pole, Jacques won. So there we go. Could it be the same again when we head to the Nurburgring? We will find out. Don't forget Stan Vliestra, who is also rapid as well. Currently sat on 49 points, only 9 points separates he and the driver that sits at the top of the standings, that being Jacques Olivier. There is Lefrancois, who is out on track right now. Obviously quite the French contingent here out on circuit. And our current championship leader being French as well. Nicolas Lefrancois, who comes into this after achieving a P9. His best points finish, though, was in race 3, where he finished in 5th and grabbed 10 points.
Yeah, absolutely. And we must applaud Jack Vliestra, for his sportsmanship in the last round. He put on a sensational performance, as it can be argued that he had some misfortunes, George, particularly in race 3. And I think he'll see that as an opportunity missed, despite managing to get a race win in the last round. He could have potentially been sitting at the top of the standings. So I think he's been a little bit unlucky, but hopefully he'll be back for a strong showing today. Jack Olivier said the ones to watch out for are Vliestra and Sven in his post-race interview. So let's have a look.
Well, he's definitely not wrong. I must say that. I mean, those are the two that obviously were the fellow podium sitters. Loic Mounier also taking a podium back in race 3 at Laguna Seca as well. But Jacques Olivier, out of the European contingent, the only driver to take 3 out of 3 where it comes down to podiums. So he is consistent. And one thing we do know about this championship, it rewards consistency. We look at the likes of Andika Ramanalana. He was consistent, only came off the top of the, only came out of the podium places in one race, which was in Laguna Seca at race 3. All the others were a clean sweep. Managed to achieve a victory in Laguna Seca race 1, Laguna Seca race 2. In terms of coming here to Nurburgring, he won twice and came 2nd once, so or at least out on track anyway. So that consistency is rewarded. Does that place Jacques Olivier in the prime spots right now here, Nina?
Absolutely, and I think consistency is just good for momentum as well, George. Just getting that momentum to keep going and keep being consistent, it all helps with your confidence.
Well, Jacques Olivier having a little moment, actually making his way back into the pits. Now, we only have 4 minutes remaining, so that's going to place him very much up against it. There's Stan Vliestra, again, the driver that we all felt we had to watch because he was brilliant, has to be said. I mean, whilst, of course, he didn't take a single pole position, he did manage to finish 2nd in the opening race, just ahead of Jacques Olivier, our current championship leader, and also win the 2nd race, ahead of Jacques Olivier again, who finished 2nd in that one. Vliestra, when he gets his nose in front, Nina, he's very hard to beat.
Yeah, very, very hard to beat. He's a real racer, George, and he's got that in his blood. So let's see what he can put off today. Interestingly enough, if you remember, George, in Olivier's post-race interview, he said he had limited prep time for the last track. He only managed to put in 5 or 6 hours. He said he aimed to practice much more for the Nurburgring, and I think with the likes of Vliestra breathing down his neck in the standings, he's going to need to do that.
Yeah, I think it obviously sent a bit of a warning to him a little bit. And while Jacques Olivier did come out of it, obviously topping the championship, I think he was a little concerned that Vliestra was very much on the pace. And as well, we can't factor out, obviously, the drivers that are currently sat further down. I mean, Sven Gielhode is ready to pick up the pieces should someone drop them. And, of course, other drivers out on track as well. Here comes Vliestra, immediately goes to the top ahead of Nicolas Lefrancois, who is now down to 2nd. Lucas Galli up into 3rd place, but 1.4 off the top. A 154.169, which is actually, I think, faster than what we saw earlier on today in APAC.
Yeah, that's correct. It's definitely a really rapid lap, isn't it? And the nervous energy will be bubbling, George. It's the first race of the evening. So if you have a bad start in the first race, it just kind of sets the tone for the rest of the races. So everyone will be really hoping for a good showing.
And with, obviously, the man we're currently watching, Jacques Olivier, championship leader, obviously not setting his lap straight out of the blocks, actually moved himself back to the pit lane. He's only given himself a short window to beat Stan Vliestra's rapid lap time. He's making his way around the final corner now. Let's wait and see what he can do. Slightly out of sync, you'd say, certainly with some others crossing the line. Currently 9th fastest, but his next lap is the one we want to keep our eyes on. He just falls in behind Lasse Albrecht, who sits in 8th fastest, but 9.8 off the top, set by Stan Vliestra, who is still holding all the cards. There's Luca Andretti right now, who is currently sat in 10th place, just behind Jacques Olivier, and making his way out of turn 1. Needs to find a little bit of time, but unable yet to break into that top 5. Obviously, some drivers having a rethink. Like I said, this really does throw them up against it a little bit here, Nina, because they basically got 1 lap to do this in. They can't afford to make a mistake.
Absolutely not. The stakes are so high, because even if you do start in the midfield, you could get caught up in that first lap drama that we've seen this morning, George, as well. So you want to have a good showing. Interestingly enough, I'm intrigued to see what kind of lap Jacques Olivier pulls out, because in his post-race interview last time around, he mentioned the Nurburgring is a really strong track for him as long as he gets his setup right. Keyword setup, George, as we noticed from this morning. But it's far less twisty and treacherous than Laguna Seca, so you should be able to get more overtakes done even if he doesn't have a good showing.
Yeah, it really is a key thing. I mean, we did see how crucial setup was, I think, before. Obviously, we saw 2 different methodologies. I think Andika Ramabalana definitely had the better methodology, I think, earlier on, hence why he's going through to Ferrari World Yas Island Abu Dhabi on December the 5th. As we now watch Jacques Olivier now make his way out of turn 12 and a run up through towards turn 13, and then a short run up towards the chicane at the top of the hill. This is where we saw a massive move made by Marcin Sidorek, which we didn't think he would pull off, but somehow managed to do it. The tail, though, escaping Jacques Olivier, who runs out over the grass. He's got mere seconds counting down. If he doesn't get across the line now, he won't be able to go again. He's got 1 last chance. Let's see where this time stacks as he now makes his way towards the line. Just how much did that cost him? I think it would have been substantial, and yes, didn't improve 1 iota, might have yet had his time deleted for track limits. Luca Andretti going up to 3rd fastest, though, just ahead of Eduardo Blasquez. Now, an interesting note on Blasquez. Best finish so far was a P10 in our last race at Laguna Seca, and now he has a great chance being 5th fastest. Nicolas Lefrancois, 2nd fastest, just ahead of Andretti just for now. Stan Vliestra also looking to improve on his current personal best and current qualifying best so far.
Yeah, Vliestra going well. Nightmare for Jacques Olivier. Now the pressure is on him, George. He's got to perform. He's got 1 lap to do it. He does not want to be starting in 11th place. Absolutely make a huge dent to his standings, even if he finishes in the top 5. So let's see what he pulls out the bag.
Yeah, well, Stan Vliestra at 34 thousandths, just outside of his personal best time. If he finds something here in this final sector, then he could have a further improvement on that 154.169 that was already dazzling from the get-go. The timer is ticked to 0, so these are the last lap. Vliestra really take it to the grass as well. Not quite as much as what we saw from Jacques Olivier, but it's not certainly going to be a comfortable ride for him to head over that portion. Now we've got Barrian, who's moved up to 5th fastest just behind Pantola. Vliestra now coming across the line. Lost a little bit of time, I think, coming out of that final sector, but this is the man we all came to see. Jacques Olivier looking to try and add his name to the top of this list. Can he usurp Stan Vliestra here in the dying moments? The 2 championship contenders here in the European region for Assetto Corsa. Again, the rear steps out, but it's a lot better than what it was before. I'm expecting an improvement here from Jacques Olivier. Foot to the floor as he now heads up towards the line. Is it going to be an improvement? Yes! 3rd fastest, not quite enough though for pole position. That will be going the way of Stan Vliestra. What a sensational effort by the Dutchman.
Yeah, great qualifying from Vliestra, doing exactly what he needs to do. As we said, he's sitting currently 2nd in the standings. He qualified on pole. He's done everything he needs to do now. His first job's done. Now he just has to convert it. Unfortunate for Jacques Olivier, if I'm honest. You know, he didn't have a great showing, but at least he did made a good recovery and he's in 3rd.
Yeah, well, I can tell you that Stan Vliestra applying all that knowledge he would have taken from EMEA Esports back in February, and also raced at Zandvoort fairly recently as well. I say fairly recently, it was back in December, came P3 and obtained his racing license back then as well, and is putting it to good use. The Dutchman obviously coming here and looking to take yet another victory. We have yet to have a driver take more than one victory so far this campaign. All three of our first three races were split between three drivers. Of course, Sven Gilho taking the first one, and then his fellow countryman Stan Vliestra going to take race 2. And then after that, Jacques Olivier, after knocking on the door twice, he obtained a third place, a second place, and then eventually a first place. He stood on every step of the podium. Obviously would love to take yet another win. And I must say, that clutch lap to go third fastest at the very latter depths of that session was much needed, Nina.
Absolutely. He needed to do it. He needed to do it. There was no other choice. He could not risk starting really outside the podium position because it would just make his day so much more harder. And now he's got a job to do. He's got to hunt down Vliestra.
Yeah, absolutely. Though he does have Nicolas Lefrancois currently stood between he and Vliestra right now. Fastest time was set by Stan Vliestra at a 1:54.169. Now that is over 4/10 faster than Nicolas Lefrancois. So a domineering performance from Stan Vliestra, really, when you look at it on paper. No one could get close to his delta. Now, the one concern I do have, setting fast times is all well and good here, Nina, but at the expense of the setup, perhaps?
Exactly. We saw it this morning with Suderek. He was 6/10 ahead his nearest challenger in second place in qualifying, and it didn't bode well for the race. He was very much set up for the qualifying. So let's see how Vliestra performs during the race.
Yeah, well, all the drivers now are on a standing start basis. Obviously, a little different here on ACC again. We don't do the rolling start like we see on iRacing and also ACC. Today, of course, we will be going from that standing start. So the drivers now taking their places on their grid spots. At the head of the order, Stan Vliestra met alongside him Nicolas Lefrancois. How is Jacques Olivier going to deal with that? With Luca Andretti as well on his inside. Don't forget Nico Puntola, who has also been quite the eye-catcher as well, all the way from Finland. And then we have Nicolas Barriant as well down in 6th with Eduardo Blasquez, who, remember, finished 10th. That was his best result. He's currently higher than that, 7th place for Eduardo Blasquez, looking to come here to party this time around. The lights now going red. All 6 are now lit. And it's pedal to the metal, and it's go, 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 go. Great start there for Stan Vliestra, and also a great start for Jacques Olivier, who now moves along the outside now of Nicolas Lefrancois, who did not get a smooth certainly a smooth start, and he's got Luca Andretti also moving up on his outside, heading through now in towards turn 1. Lefrancois forfeits second. It's Jacques Olivier who now looks to catch Stan Vliestra, our two of our championship protagonists, I should say, leading the way. Sejourne moving ahead of Puntola, who drops down to 7th, and it looks like Lasse Albrecht had a very uncomfortable start behind Lucas Galli. Puntola and Sejourne still going at it over 6th place.
Yeah, dream start for Vliestra. He wasn't challenged one bit. Nice, easy start for him. Great start from Olivier as well. He dispatched Lefrancois immediately, and that's exactly what he needed to do, George. Now we've got to see if he's got it in him to overtake Vliestra.
Well, Puntola and Sejourne still going side by side, but it looks like Puntola has come out on top in this one. No Punterinos here on the opening lap, but Stan Vliestra leading the way in great fashion. We're now back with Nicolas Barriant, who is now trying to take on Gatti, and Gatti now moving down to 9th, and that's allowed Lucas Galli to now come in as well. Lasse Albrecht getting it slightly wrong coming out of turn 8, but here comes Gatti and Galli moving up to 9th place. So well done, Lucas Galli, the Frenchman now, the regional qualifier from Spa in split 1, finishing 3rd in race 1 and P1 in race 2, showing some of that form straight away on the outset of turn 8, taking full opportunity of Gatti's mishap as he went toe-to-toe with Barriant. Barriant now up into 8th.
Yeah, the pack's quite bunched up, so I reckon there's going to be a lot of action. When the nerves go and the race settles down, people are going to start getting quite punchy because there's precious points up for grabs, George.
Yeah, Jacques Olivier obviously knows that more than anybody. Currently sat 2nd place, of course, will take home 18 points should he stay here, but he's all about the big prize. He doesn't want Stan Vliestra to get any leverage upon him here in round 2. The 2 cars that are in the white livery now streak down through towards turn 1 in the distance. You can see Lefrancois, who originally sat P2 off the back of the start of this race here at Nurburgring. Here comes Puntola. He's chasing after Eduardo Blasquez. Now remember, Puntola and Sejourne were battling it out right at the very start. Blasquez, who started down in 7th, has had a great start because he's now up to 5th place.
Yeah, great start from him. He needs to just keep his head down now and try and stay or get even further up if possible.
Yeah, well, Blasquez obviously potentially one to watch going forward. He's going to have a tricky task, though, of trying to get into the top end to fight for a place at Ferrari World Yas Island Abu Dhabi for the Ferrari HP Esports Series Grand Final on December 5th. But nonetheless, he can still give a good account. And obviously, it would help his confidence, essentially, looking ahead to perhaps future events. We could yet see him back here. We'll have to wait and see. There is Lucas Galli, obviously after taking on Gatti earlier on when they went side by side. Tommaso Gatti wasn't able to hold back the tirade that the Frenchman had brought, and instead Barry Ant could be yet his next victim. He's getting closer and closer to the back of him, 3/10 away between them. Sejourne still holding on to 7th place as it stands, as they now head through towards turn 12 very soon. First and foremost, they've got to get through turn 11 at Kumo Curve as they now fly through the next right-hander. Still Valistra clear, and he looks like he's gapping Olivier right now here, Nina. It's nearly a second.
Yeah, currently Olivier has no answers for Valistra's pace. So, yes, he nailed the setup in Quali, but it seems that he's also nailed his setup, and it's going well so far in the race.
Definitely is. Lucas Galli had a brief look up the inside of Barry Ant over that 8th place, but unfortunately the door was shut. Whoa, oh, dearie me, what happened at the back there? I think that might have been Gatti, Tommaso Gatti going off towards the rear, just taking some of that escape. We saw Jacques Olivier make that error in qualifying, and therefore he had to go again. But this time around, it's Tommaso Gatti who now loses out. Puntola now looking to attack Eduardo Blasquez over that 5th place. Obviously points on offer here for 5th, probably more advanced here than P6. And up the inside comes Puntola, heading through the arena section out of turn 2 and through towards turn 3. Puntola will once again have the tiger line, but the turn will then meet the right, and that is where Blasquez can flex his muscles in his very own Ferrari 488, and still persevering. Alongside, they rise again, coming through towards that middle sector. Still side by side they stay. Blasquez doing enough to defend. He's got his nose in front, but through this next left-hander, it will favour Puntola, but it won't favour him around the hairpin as they still remain wheel to wheel on the run out now. But better on the throttle on that occasion was Eduardo Blasquez, but they're still manacled at the hip. Fabulous racing here between these two as they dance around the Nurburgring. Inside again for Blasquez. They meet now on the outside of the track, just forced off wide. There is Puntola, and he's forfeited places to Sejourne in 6, and Galli also licking his lips in behind.
Unlucky for Puntola there, but what brilliant racing up until that point. Really, really good, hard racing. They were side by side for so many corners, George. Someone had to give, and unfortunately it was Puntola.
Yeah, it was really unfortunate indeed. Around Nurburgring, that's exactly what can happen. Obviously, we've seen it a few times now. I think at the very start as well, Lucas Galli was in a fight of his own that was very similar. As we're now seeing Puntola now coming toe-to-toe with Sejourne over P6. Lucas Galli, wowee! And Galli also losing out. Damien Sejourne dropping down the field. Tommaso Gatti moves up to 9th. Barry Ant has gone off as well somewhere and has fallen to P11. So Puntola now sitting in P6, that the stewards might take a dim view of that moment.
I think the stewards are going to have to get to work, George, already, and we're not even halfway there yet.
No.
Oh, no, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was quite something. The fin, unfortunately, coming unstuck, and obviously we'll have to wait and see how this might affect him. Obviously, quite the moment flying up the hill. Obviously, coming through the Schumacher S is never ideal. And unfortunately, it was Sejourne who came off the worst. That's Damien Sejourne from France, who came through around the regional qualifiers, took part in split 1 at Spa, much like Lucas Galli did. Actually finished behind Lucas Galli in race 1, finishing in 4th, and then P3 in race 2, where Lucas Galli would go on to win. So that is the story of how they got there. Incidentally, they're both meeting again on track. Sejourne has just managed to get past Lucas Galli and move up into 10th place. Lasse Albrecht, who started right at the back, remember, started P11. We're watching him on screen now. He's chasing after Nico Puntola this time as they look to duel for P6.
Puntola can't catch a break. Every minute he's looking in his mirrors, George. And the thing is, for Sejourne and Galli, what the benefit they have is not a big grid. So they can really still bag some points if they just get their head down.
Yeah, not forgetting, it's such a wide track in places here at Nurburgring. As you can see, it's fairly narrow at this point as Puntola licks up some of the dirt, and he's just taking it up again as well, and that's allowing Lasse Albrecht to move on through into P6. Now, I'm not sure whether that was intentional or if that was an error on Puntola's part. Lucas Galli, incidentally, he's in the pits. Whether he's got too much damage or he's retiring, I'm not quite sure, but either way, he's not on track.
Yeah, unfortunate for Gally there. I'm not sure if he's going to come back out, but let's see. Meanwhile, oh, are we having a change of the lead, George?
I think you could be right. Vlistra, I think, might have had an error because he's dropping through the field. What has happened to Stan Vlistra? Goodness me, Jack Olivier taking the fastest lap with a 1:54.371. Now, I want to say this. I know for a fact that Stan Vlistra was having issues trying to get into the qualifying session earlier on. Now, is he having technical issues, or was there something more sinister happening out on track that we don't know about? One thing's for sure is Vlistra is under attack now from Eduardo Blázquez, and he's 6.7 away from Andretta, who sits in P3.
Oh, hopefully. I think Vlistra had a lock-up into the final corner, and we've seen these mistakes happen this morning and this evening now, George. The drivers don't seem fully comfortable. I don't know if it's whether they're just a bit rusty or they haven't nailed their setups, but unfortunately Vlistra made a mistake and it's cost him big time.
It's cost him dearly, because not only has that led to him forfeiting the lead, but it has gone into the hands, into the palms of Jacques Olivier. Now, we did mention about the setups. Now, is it the case that Vlistra has gone out with a setup that's more catered to the qualifying session, aside from the race trim as such, and therefore has it left him a little bit vulnerable in a similar fashion to what we saw from Marcin Swiderek? I mean, that could be the spanner or the spoke in the wheel that disrupts his challenge for a position at the Ferrari HP Esports Series Grand Final.
Yeah, exactly. And now he's under pressure from 5th, 6th, 7th place. There's a train of cars behind him, George. He just needs to try and maintain at least this 4th place, because remember, where you finish in this race determines where you start in the next one.
It certainly is. He'll be starting P4 should it stay like this, and Stan Vlistra will not be thankful of it. Very, very close to taking victory here in our opening race, and we've only got 5 minutes and 25 to go, so any hopes of a recovery are certainly not in the offing here, as now Lasse Albrecht and Eduardo Blázquez come together, heading through the chicane. Obviously this time Albrecht thinking against it, and this time it's asking Blázquez to go slightly defensive, and at the same time Nico Puntola has joined the party, so a two-way fight now becomes a three-way fight. Barry Ent now has come into the pits as well. That's the second car that has now made its way into the pit lane, and it looks like both he and Gally are going to be retirements out of this race. Here comes Lasse Albrecht around the outside of Eduardo Blázquez as they now come in towards turn 1. Blázquez doing enough to try and hold on, but a fantastic show from Lasse Albrecht to move up into 5th. Here comes Nico Puntola around the outside coming out of turn 2. They'll run wheel to wheel through. Now, look there, braking a little early was Puntola, but has now had to form up in behind Eduardo Blázquez. But regardless, fantastic move from Lasse Albrecht.
What a fantastic showing the midfield is giving us, George. A lot of these guys are racing for brownie points, but my goodness, are they giving us a good race.
Well, Lasse Albrecht, remember, started P11 right at the tail end of the field, would not have scored any points at all being down there, but has fought his way into P5, and that will garner him 10 points to his very own championship charge. What a moment indeed for him, and no doubt looking to persevere and close the gap between he and Stan Vlistra, who could yet lose a little bit of time. If he is struggling on tyres, remember he locked up. That's not going to help your rubber, and at the same time, if it is a setup issue, then that's not going to help him anymore.
No, exactly. He has a little bit of breathing space now. 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds, Albrecht is behind him. So he just needs to, keep his head down now, George, and not make any more mistakes. He can't afford it.
Well, Lasse Albrecht is a very capable driver. He, of course, did finish 4th twice in a row back at Laguna Seca, picking up 12 points apiece in those first 2 races, and then it was a P6 back in race 3. So really, it was a poor qualifying session on part of Lasse Albrecht. When we know what he's capable of, whether it's the case that he's better at Laguna Seca, we're not quite sure, but by the same token, a driver of his quality, you'd expect him to be towards the front end where it comes to a track like Nurburgring. Of course, this time around, currently sat P5, and I think he might have just gone purple in that last lap as well. So a great display on part of Lasse Albrecht. Could he be bringing his absolute best at a point during this race where it's absolutely necessary? If he does manage to catch up with Stan Vlistra and make the pass, then it will put him in a position to take a 3rd out of 4th P4 finish. That would be absolutely sensational, but he has got to try and find 2.9 seconds. Vlistra is still lapping faster than he is, and we've only got 2.5 minutes remaining.
Yeah, he's a very capable driver. He's done, like you say, he finished 4th consecutively for the first 2 races in the last round. Jack Olivier, in the meantime, is just loving his life, completely off into the sunset, getting no airtime, which is the best compliment for a driver because he's in first position and there's no action happening up there.
Yeah, Nicolas Lefrancois also on for his very first podium here in this region, so absolutely phenomenal effort on part of him. Obviously, may have a little bit of a nosebleed up there because he's only finished, his highest finish was P5, which is where Lasse Albrecht currently sits right now, and that was back in race 3 at Laguna Seca. And Luca Andretti also putting on a grand display as well, looking to actually take his 3rd consecutive P3 after going P3 twice in a row back in race 2 and race 3. So, you know, there's opportunities here on the table, but for Lefrancois, this will be his first podium should he finish there.
Yeah, great showing from Lefrancois. Really, really solid. Made no mistakes. He's just, you know, getting on with it, really.
Yeah, fabulous job. 3.6 seconds behind Jacques Olivier right now. Luca Andretti then a further 2.1 in behind him. So he's in no man's land as it currently stages, but that's not a bad place to be. And incidentally, in that last lap, he was 4 tenths, nearly 4 tenths quicker than Luca Andretti coming out of the final corner. Now Jacques Olivier makes his way round out of turn 1. The timer ticking within very nearly 1 minute and 10, which means that this will be the final lap of the race. There is Nico Puntola trying to close up to the back of Eduardo Blasquez. They're still fighting over P6 as it stands, and Puntola within half a second as they come through the first sector.
I must say, Puntola's got a lot of action this race, George. Probably going to be a bit tired for the next one, but he's done really, really well. He's been unlucky in some instances, but he's fighting back.
Well, Puntola by name, Puntola by nature. And coming through out of turn 3 and turn 4, looking to dig deep here, but Eduardo Blasquez is going to be a thorn in his side here in the final closing stages of race 1. Half a minute to go, and it's Jacques Olivier who leads the way. He's still gapping Nicolas Lefrancois at the very top of the tree. It's now 4.2 seconds, very quickly ushering in a 2/10 of a second gap, which bodes well, I think, for Jacques Olivier for the remaining races. Does not bode well, though, for Stan Vliestra, who's going to be wondering what happened. What led to him locking up like he did? Was it a misbraking point? Was it misjudgment off the back of all the pressure of taking the opening race victory of the evening? It could have yet curtailed what could have been a brilliant night for him so far, but he's still got 2 races to go. It could all be turned around here with only 2 races left here in the European region. Here on Assetto Corsa, it looks like some dirt was kicked up as well further back, but Jacques Olivier coming around the final corner. A more comfortable win he never could have got. Coming out to the final bend of turn 16, it's Jacques Olivier back again in victory for the 2nd time here in the regional finals here in the European region of AC. He finishes ahead of Nicolas Francois, who takes his first podium of the campaign, and Luca Andretti, 3 consecutive P3 finishes as he crosses the line.
Great drive from Olivier. He was almost, well, he was gifted the win, wasn't he? But he still had to back it up and finish the race, and that's exactly what he did. A shame for Vliestra. I think he'll definitely be wondering what if. But at the end of the day, we've got 2 more races to go, George, and another qualifying session, so it's not over yet.
No, not at all. And what we will say is this, is that Jacques Olivier, off the back of that performance, obviously, remember, did not qualify the best. It was a tough one for him. Obviously, it took until the very last knockings for him to put a P3 lap together. But nonetheless, a grand effort on his part to move up from 3rd to 1st. And really, the big point of asking was, of course, that big moment, the error that, of course, Stan Vliestra had. Here are the current standings, provisional though as it stands, folks. Obviously, remember, we have active stewarding here at this moment in time. But as we're looking at it on paper, Jacques Olivier is topping the standings with 83 points now. Remember, that gap was 9. It's now a little bit more than that. Stan Vliestra down in 2nd. He's 22 points behind Jacques Olivier now. He cannot afford for a mishap to happen when we go racing in race 2. Luca Andretti in 3rd place. He's on 55 points. Lasse Albrecht, after a very decent finish, in 4th place on 42. Sven Gilho down in 5th place on 37. Nicolas Lefrancois, after that first podium finish, puts him on 30 points in 6th place. And then Loic Munier down in 7th place, just ahead of Nico Puntola, who was in the midst of all the action and has managed to achieve 20 points so far. So that's your top 8 already out of the European region so far. We're going to now move on to the next 8 with Nathan Maximan in 9th place ahead of Eduardo Blasquez in 10th. Alex Laho down in 11th place with Damien Sojourn in 12th. Dylan Claver in 13th with Tommaso Gatti in 14th and Francesco Menachacci in 15th place, just ahead of Lucas Galli on 1 solitary point in P16. So what an occasion, what a battle, an immense fight. We love to see it. This time around, though, the grid decided by race 1's result. And obviously, Stan Vliestra finishing where he did, he will still have a chance to challenge. But it's going to be tough here, Nina, to try and get the jump on one Jacques Olivier, who seems to have everything dialed in right now. Whilst it wasn't necessarily pole position for Jacques Olivier in qualifying, to get a P3 on something that might have been more accustomed to a race setup as opposed to a quali setup could prove to be the making of him tonight.
Exactly. Jacques Olivier did everything he needed to do. He overtook Lefrancois at the start, dispatched him really quickly, and he was there to pick up on someone else's misfortune. That's exactly what he did. It's interesting because it's not the first time this week where we've seen drivers buckle under pressure and make mistakes that's going to potentially cost them their place in the grand final.
Well, I mean, say no more. Obviously, looking at Marcin Swiderek being one of those drivers as well. He is accustomed to those moments going wrong for him, and it was a shame as well because he came in with so much promise. I mean, with the pole positions that he had obviously accrued, we thought, well, the one-lap pace is there. The big question is, though, is it full-on race pace? You know, we have seen a few obvious upsets, you know, already so far. And Stan Vliestra, I think, is probably quite a big one, certainly considering how good he was back at Laguna Seca. But I mean, also some Cinderella stories. What would it mean, obviously, to someone like Nicolas Lefrancois to come into a championship like this and take your first podium here tonight?
That'll be huge for him, and even to make it this far, George, whether you're a seasoned driver or you're a newcomer, this is a huge worldwide stage. This Ferrari HP Esports series, even just to make it this far to the regional finals, hats off to him. He can be proud of himself.
Yeah, obviously we go through the qualification phases where drivers have to go through regional qualifiers, some coming through from hot laps as well, but all the cars now lining up onto the grid, and the advantage is with one Jacques Olivier. He's going to be met, though, with what looks to be Nicolas Lefrancois all alongside him. Obviously, this time alongside each other as opposed to having Nicolas Lefrancois ahead of him. But it was Jacques Olivier who got the jump on him in our previous race. He'll be hoping to get the jump on him once more, but all eyes as well will be pierced on the likes of Stan Vliestra, who went pole in the previous race, fought his way back after forfeiting the lead of the race after a lockup, but this time we'll be hoping to come back fighting in a quest to take this championship. He can't afford to make a mistake here, Nina.
Absolutely not. He needs a great start. He needs to do exactly what Jacques Olivier did in the last race and make up a few positions at the start and then try and hunt after the leader.
Yeah, absolutely right. Of course, this track, world famous. As we said before, Formula One has come here. Various different sports cars have also come here. Today we're bringing the Ferrari 488s back again for race 2 here in the European regions, and it's pedal to the metal, and it's go, 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 go. Great start again, this time for Jacques Olivier once more. He starts brilliantly, and unfortunately the same can't be said for Lefrancois, who now starts dropping down through the field. Keep your eyes peeled on Stan Vliestra, who is now starting to move his way up the inside. A huge battle. Vliestra up to second place, immediately getting the jump on Luca Andretta, as well as Nicolas Lefrancois, who had a very poor start right at the get-go, but clear at this point anyway, is Jacques Olivier, and he's up by a second.
Dispatched 2 cars in the space of a corner, George. What brilliant driving that was from Vliestra, and it was exactly what he needed to do. Now all he can do now is try and hunt down Jacques Olivier. Olivier wasn't able to overtake Vliestra in the last race. Let's see what Vliestra has.
Well, his concerns are placed against one driver alone, and that is Jacques Olivier. Remember, only one place available in the Ferrari HP Esports series here in the AC. No matter what region it is, of course. We'll take one driver from each region to head to the Ferrari HP Esports Series Grand Final. Nico Pantola and Damien Sojourn coming wheel to wheel once more, but Sojourn just too good on that occasion. Nicolas Lefrancois also at the mercy this time of Lasse Albrecht as they now fly through as well. Albrecht, though, barely hanging on, and a big moment for Albrecht, who now drops further down the order, just gets it all wrong. The rear stepped out. Lefrancois able to hold on to 4th place, but has forfeited time against Luca Andretta, who's now up into 3rd. Eduardo Blasquez Perez now trying to move up. He's a second behind Nicolas Lefrancois as it stands.
Such a shame for Ulbeck. He's fallen right down the points now. He's in 9th place. But the good thing is, it's only the beginning of the race. He has time to make up those positions. And we have another qualifying session next, Jake. George just called you Jake then. Going back to Monday.
I answer to anything at this point. Incredible. We've got side by side again. Nico Pantola trying to hop after Tommaso Gatti. That is over 7th place now as they fight it out, heading down the long straight turn 1 in the distance. Lasse Albrecht as well further back after that near miss. It could have ended a lot more painfully for him. But we do have a confirmed DNF though. Lucas Galli is out of the picture. Number 12 though, the car belonging to Tommaso Gatti, looking to have a good run. Nico Pantola though ahead of him right now as they burst through the arena section. Of course, still at the top of the tree is Jacques Olivier, but you can just see there Pantola forced to require defensive action to keep Tommaso Gatti in behind. Lasse Albrecht also just hovering in behind these two as well, just potentially waiting for his moment to strike. But at this stage, Olivier lapping extremely strong. 1.2 seconds now between he and Stan Vliestra, who has got some breathing space because Luca Andretti is 1.7 away from him.
Yeah, he's not under immediate pressure, is he, as Valicia? So now he can just focus on getting his head down and closing up to the back of Olivier. But currently, Olivier's lapping really well. Valicia hasn't really got that many answers to his pace.
No, he hasn't broken to within that 1.2, at least by a huge margin. Of course, he might have found a few thousands or a few hundreds here and there, but certainly not enough to be indicative of being in a position to make a move. A big moment, though, for Nico Pantola, who just unsettles the car as they now make their way out to the Michael Schumacher S and through towards turn 11 and now in towards turn 12. He's still relentlessly trying to close down to Damien Sejourne and really putting emphasis on this, and he's being chased down as well by Tommaso Gatti. He's on a battle around all fronts here at this stage now as they fly up the hill, and a nice run here for Tommaso Gatti. Might look to open up the door heading into the chicane. The inside line is available and the Ferrari 488 is not afraid to go for it, but the red car stays in behind, and it might open the door here for Lasse Albrecht as well.
I think Patola's one of the hardest working men today in the race, and sadly he should be a little bit higher than he is, but he's had some unlucky incidences and he's currently stuck in 7th. But let's see if he can make some positions up.
Yeah, well, a 1:54.349 from Stan Vliestra is the fastest lap of the race so far, and it's brought him to within a second now. He's closing to Jacques Olivier, and I tell you what, timing is perfect. We've still got 10 minutes and 40 to go, and he's now starting to hover all over the back of Jacques Olivier's car. So is there a chance here for Stan Vliestra? Luca Andretti is now 2.5 seconds away from the top two, with Nicolas Lefrancois down in 4th place, but only half a second away or so behind Luca Andretti as it stands. Nico Pantola doing a great job of trying to keep Tommaso Gatti in behind, and he's focusing his efforts now on Damien Sejourne in that battle for 6. And Pantola, who was right in the thick of battle in our last race, is now once again in the heat of the moment and trying to close on the back of Sejourne in this quest, in this midfield fight to unseat Sejourne over that 6th place. So look down the inside from Lasse Albrecht as they now head in towards turn 8.
Yeah, great racing across the board. I think Vliestra knows as well where the standings and the position they currently are. He needs to finish first. He needs to win. So I reckon as soon as he does close up to Olivier, where he's at the point where he can actually challenge for the lead, he's going to try and make that move because he has no choice, George.
Yeah, he's got to. Of course, Jacques Olivier doing exceptionally well. Damien Sejourne, I think, having a big moment as well. Pantola has taken P6, but what has happened to Damien Sejourne? He has dropped down the field, and he's forfeited over 6 seconds in behind Barry Ant right now, who's currently sat in 9th place. Nicolas Lefrancois still relentlessly trying to close up on the back of Luca Andretti, and yet more movements being made in the midfield as Lasse Albrecht somehow, some way, gets onto the grass though on the outset of the chicane, and that allows Tommaso Gatti to retake that 7th place. Albrecht has been threatening him constantly through the course since the beginning of this race. 9 minutes to go, and Albrecht back on the attack once more.
I think the gloves have very much come off in this race. Everyone's going for it, George. Everyone's a little bit more punchy. And there's less jeopardy this time around because we have a qualifying session next.
We certainly do. Running very deep was Tommaso Gatti then, so that will open up the door for Lasse Albrecht coming out of turn 2 and in towards turn 3. The two red Ferrari 488s. Remember, we're jumping out to the 296 for now. On AC, we run the 488 back into the 8-cylinder. Ferrari, that of course has been a staple across various different championships, including GT World Challenge and not to mention other sports car championships to boot. And speaking of GT World Challenge drivers, Jacques Olivier being one of them, actually competed in the GT World Challenge Endurance Series back, well, earlier this year. He's competing in this campaign this year as well. So very much used to an endurance format. This, of course, very much a sprint format. But he is showing how versatile he truly is. But Stan Vliestra keeping Olivier honest, and he's within or around the realms of 7.5 tenths in behind.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like if you're good at an endurance format, then a sprint format should be easy for you, because essentially it's very, very quick if you compare it to an endurance race. So Jacques Olivier seems very comfortable. He's able to maintain the gap. It is under a second, but it's not really dropping below 8 tenths. So currently under control.
Yeah, just less tyre whispering involved, you'd fathom, as they now climb the hill once more. Lasse Albrecht now once more trying to close on the back of Tommaso Gatti, the Italian, under convincing pressure now from the German, who is sat in behind and waiting for his chance, waiting to pick his spot. But at this stage, still not in a position is Lasse Albrecht, as we now resume the fight happening for third place. And this is the last step on the podium, and a lot of squirrely action there from Nicolas Lefrancois, who tries to challenge Luca Andretta around the outside. Andretta having the better line, and certainly isn't going to be troubled by that move from Nicolas Lefrancois. But it's what happens towards the latter stages of Sector 1 that might yet be a concern for Andretta, who tries to go defensive. The Frenchman on the attack as they now head out of turn 3 and turn 4, and then on the run towards turn 5 very shortly in towards turn 6. And it's still Andretta holding on to P3 as it stands. More to come in the offing. The young man from Switzerland, NASCAR CMR-SC champion, and still holding on to that P3. Doing a good job as well, but you can bet your bottom dollar that Nicolas Lefrancois isn't going to go down without a fight.
Absolutely not. That'll be a great battle between those two, actually, because Luca Andretta finished third in race 2 and race 3 last time around. So he's no slouch, George, and it'll be difficult to overtake him. Yeah,
that was his third P3 in succession, so he knows exactly what to do in chasing what looks to be a potential 4th in a row, should it remain like this. 4.8 seconds, though, away from Stan Vliestra, so he's forfeited any sort of slipstream. And Lefrancois is going to find that, obviously, that'll fall into his favour. It's now Lasse Albrecht once again hunts after Tommaso Gatti, who is still holding on relentlessly. The young Italian still working hard at it, with Albrecht still marching all over his rears, the German doing his utmost. What this has allowed is Barriant to come straight back. Nicolas Barriant, the Frenchman, looking to come in and join the party. Three-way fight now, this battle over P8, or should I say P7, has become. And now Barriant up the inside as well, trying to challenge Lasse Albrecht, coming through the final corner at turn 16. Was unsuccessful, but I think it's more about turn 1 that he's more concerned about.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what squabbling does. It allows the people behind you to catch up to you, and Barriant just flashing his lights there, trying to play those psychological games. Let's see if who gives up first.
Oh, very aggressive move there from Lasse Albrecht up the inside, and that is something we've seen consistently from him as well. The German trying to put the squeeze on Tommaso Gatti as it stands, but still they'll run nose to tail, and this might have opened the door as well for Barriant, who took an aggressive line coming out of turn 2 and turn 3 and through towards turn 4. Slightly squirrely from Lasse Albrecht, who I think was being pushed along coming out of the arena section, and I'd imagine he had to take a deep breath before then making his way down through towards turn 5. A nervy moment for the German.
I think they were practically touching there. Pushed along, they were definitely touching. My goodness me, what great racing from the three of them.
Yeah, certainly leaving it all out on the track. 4 minutes and 10 now to go, and you fathom there's probably 3 laps remaining, including this one. At this stage, Jacques Olivier still out in front and holding all the cards. Stan Vliestra, half a second and waiting in behind. This could yet leave us with a final lap, last chance to dance. All places on the podium are up for question as it stands, because Luca Andretta in the fight of his life against Nicolas Lefrancois down in 4th place, and Eduardo Blasquez currently in no man's land, as is Nico Puntola, because Tommaso Gatti is trying to be the cork in the bottle against Lasse Albrecht and Barriant, who's down in 9th place right now. Here's the battle for 3rd as we're seeing it. There's Nicolas Lefrancois still giving Luca Andretti a headache, but Andretta doing a brilliant job of retaining that third place.
Yeah, currently Lefrancois has no answers for Andretti's defensive driving. He's doing really, really well. Valestra now 4 tenths behind Jacques Olivier, so we may well still have a race on our hands, George, but I fear Valestra's just left it a little bit too late.
I think he might have. Lefrancois, though, still working hard to try and get past Andretta. Andretta was weaving down the straight, trying to break the toe. Lefrancois then would challenge, went a little deep around the outside. Andretta just positioning the car in all the right places to defend this P3. Of course, that will be his 4th consecutive one. And here is the battle for the lead now. 2 minutes and 45 to run. And it's Jacques Olivier looking to make it 3 wins throughout the entirety of this regional finals phase here for the European region on AC, as they now fly down towards turn 8 again this time. Stan Valistra, though, who is still hurting no less, I would imagine, off the back of that previous result. He was leading the race. One mishap with the lockup would have caused him to forfeit that lead advantage. It went Jacques Olivier's way. He basically handed it to him, and no doubt that's going to hurt so much for the young Dutchman, who is now working so hard to regain that delta, and then in hope of taking a victory and knocking Jacques Olivier down a peg or 2.
Yeah, Valistra definitely saying what if, because he looked very comfortable when he was leading the race in our last race. Jacques Olivier, yes, was close behind him, but he wasn't putting that much pressure on him. If not for that mistake, I reckon he would have gone and won it, and the standings would look very different right now.
It definitely could. And at this stage, we're going to be coming down to the final 9 minutes. Now, it's going to be very tight when they cross the line. It's 1 minute 43, 1 minute 42. Of course, at this stage, they will, of course, I would imagine it'll be the final lap the next time around as they come out of turn 16 this time. And yes, definitely it will be the case. Jacques Olivier now across the line. They will begin this final lap, and Stan Valistra is working so hard to stay on the tail of him. Great chance here for Valistra, who you'd fathom will be hoping to take this victory because he needs to bring that points gap right down. It is getting drawn apart with Jacques Olivier putting in a 25-point visit in our previous race. It's Valistra's responsibility in his eyes to bring that down a little bit more, just so he can challenge when we go in for race 3. And obviously not forgetting it's a qualifying session again to decide that race 3 grid.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Valistra made a mistake in the last race, but I must say this race he's been absolutely faultless. Really, really strong drive. Overtook a couple of cars at the beginning, caught up to the back of Olivier, and he's putting pressure on him now. So let's see. It's not long to go, George. Let's see if he can take him.
Not long at all. Stan Valistra, of course, coming into this. He finished strong in that previous race, but obviously would be wondering what could have been. He still remains behind Jacques Olivier, who has now started to turn the screw. The gap has been drawn out to around 8 tenths of a second. It's not worked out the way Valistra might have wanted, and will lead to the fact that Olivier might yet lengthen that gap. And Nicolas Lefrancois finally alongside Luca Andretta as they now run wheel to wheel again this time. Lefrancois with the favourable inside coming out of the Michael Schumacher S, and now the run comes in towards turn 11. The final lap beckons with a battle over the final podium place. Lefrancois on the outside as they come in towards turn 12. Yet again, Andretta trying to force him back onto the grass. He goes, the two of them rubbing the paint off each other's 488s as they now climb the hill. It's Lefrancois with the advantage, but coming around the final bend, Valistra went close, wasn't quite able to take it away. Jacques Olivier will go back to back here at the Nurburgring. It's race win number 2 in race 2 for Jacques Olivier. The Frenchman extends his points gap to Stan Valistra in second place in the championship, and Nicolas Lefrancois, what a drive to overtake Luca Andretta on the final lap to stop his run of yet another podium, and instead Lefrancois would take his second here tonight.
Francois really worked for that. My goodness me, the whole race he was putting pressure on him, so he deserved that. Well done. Hard racing, but a good overtake. Well done, Jacques Olivier, as well. Absolutely seamless drive from him. Now he just needs to make sure, George, he has a good showing in qualifying, because if he has a bad showing and he qualifies in 4th, 5th, 6th, it's going to make his day a lot harder.
Definitely will. That's 3 wins in a row now for Jacques Olivier. What a tremendous performance. And that, of course, we're including Laguna Seca race 3 from round 1 in that. But it's 50 points he's managed to successfully find himself around here in race 2. And that pushes him now effectively on 108 as it stands. And obviously, now that he's broken that century mark, it's going to put him in a place that is, well, certainly very favourable heading into race 3. But first and foremost, remember, we do have that qualifying session. And Jacques Olivier, it took him until the very last knockings before he could put together that P3 visit at the very tail end of qualifying. Great effort, though, nonetheless, to take 2 victories back-to-back. And it does put Stan Vliestra in a very tricky spot, Nina.
Yeah, absolutely. If we look at the points here now, George, like you say, Jacques Olivier has crossed that 100 mark, which just makes his cushion so much greater.
Definitely does that. And obviously, it will ask major questions. If I'm not mistaken as well, looking at that gap, Jacques Olivier has won this round. Bear in mind, 25 points for a win. Stan Vliestra outside of that points gap, so will not qualify if this remains the same. Remember, all points are provisional come the end of the day. Stewards have to make their decisions on certain incidents. But Jacques Olivier topping the championship tower here in the European region on AC. Fantastic job from him. Back-to-back wins and 3 in a row if you factor in Laguna Seca as well. It's P1 for Jacques Olivier, 108 points. Stan Vliestra on 79 points in second. Luca Andretta in third place on 67 points. The battle for second place in the championship still very much underway. Nicolas Lefrancois in fourth place on 45, with Lasse Ulbrecht in fifth place on 44. Sven Gilho in 6 on 37. Nico Pantola on 28 in 7th place. Loic Mounier in 8th place on 22 points. That rounds out our top 8. We look at the remaining 8 here in our top 16, and Eduardo Blasquez sits in 19-point territory in 9th place. Then Nathan Maximan in 10th place with 16 points. Tommaso Gatti in 11th with 10 points. Alex Laho in 12th place with 8 points against his name. Damien Sejourne sitting in 13th on 7. Dylan Claver in 14th on 6. And then Nicholas Barriant on 5 points in 15th, with Francesco Menchachi on 3 points in 16th place. And that closes out our championship from, well, the top 16 anyway in our championship in the AC side of the European region. But what a tremendous effort. Jacques Olivier undefeated here at Nurburgring so far here, Nina, and it looks like a trend that's going to continue as well. First and foremost, though, qualifying isn't necessarily going to go his way, because we saw from the first session, third fastest was his best lap.
Yeah, absolutely. But it doesn't necessarily need to go his way. As you say, we did the math, and provisionally he will be going to the grand final in Abu Dhabi, Ferrari World Yas Island. However, just in case the stewards want to get involved, he seems like he's had a good day. He hasn't really got involved in many dramas. But anyway, just in case, you still want to have a good showing for the final race, so you can have a good cushion of points, just in case anything goes wrong.
I'll say it's looking good for him right now. Yeah. He's looking in a good spot. So Jacques Olivier has every reason to have a grin on his face right now. We'll wait and see if the Frenchman can do it. But obviously, commiserations for Stan Vliestra, and it definitely goes to show, I think, that the crux of his issue was definitely centered around that issue with the lockup heading into the corner in race 1. That essentially has put him in this position.
Unfortunately, that teeny mistake has spoiled his whole day and potentially cost him the chance of going to the grand final. And we've seen that. It's been a trend throughout this week, George, where drivers have just buckled under pressure a little bit and thrown it all away, essentially.
Well, if you consider, had he actually finished the race in front ahead of Jacques Olivier in race 1, the points would look vastly different at this point. They would be so close together, and it would have gone to the final race here in race 3. So he's going to be absolutely kicking himself right now. That one mistake costing him his entire championship here at this point. But yeah, I got to say though, credit to some of the other drivers out there really giving a good account. Nicolas Lefrancois, final lap overtake. We love to see it, Nina. I mean, to get around the outside of Luca Andretta in that final sector was absolutely unbelievable. They fought to the bitter end, coming through out of turn 8, the run up through the Michael Schumacher S. They were still side by side, but it went the way of Nicolas Lefrancois, a second podium tonight. Andretta's run of third place finishes came to an end.
Absolutely. It was cinematic, wasn't it? That last lap overtake, hard racing, but it was great for us to watch. Really good stuff from both the guys. Just made it a great end to the second race.
Yeah, and it means that we had 2 French drivers as well on the podium off the back of that. Obviously, we talk about Jacques Olivier, Frenchman as well, looks to be on his way to Ferrari World Yas Island, Abu Dhabi for the Ferrari HP Esports Series Grand Final. We wish him all the very best with that. But first and foremost, we do have one final qualifying session, one final race to bring. Obviously, a different trend here. we finally saw someone take yet another pole position. Well, actually, no, I don't think we did, actually. If we look back at the numbers, Stan Vliestra actually went on to take pole and didn't actually take a single pole position in our first run back at Laguna Seca. So we've had, at this stage, 3 different pole sitters here in this region, in the European regions for AC so far. So we could yet be on the cusp of finally crowning someone a double pole sitter here in the regional finals here this time, or it could go to someone totally new.
Yeah, I mean, Valicia, you know, at this point, he's got to just throw everything at it. He's got nothing to lose. You know, mathematically, let's just say it's not looking great before we confirm anything. But yeah, why not? Stick it on pole, take the race win. But it's also important for Jacques Olivier, because if he is the one going through to the grand final, it's momentum, isn't it? And it's his confidence. He wants to go into that grand final having a really strong round, because it just sets him up nicely.
Yeah, and obviously it'll help him if he's cool, calm and collected heading into this final race as well. Doesn't want to lose his head too much, doesn't want to give the stewards a reason to obviously put him in a compromising position. But, I mean, it has to be said, it's been a tremendous performance on his part. Definitely looks like a real pro out there. Qualifying now getting underway. We've only got just over 6 minutes to bring you before the end of the session. Jacques Olivier out on his outlap, as many of the other drivers are as well. Obviously, he's going to be absolutely delighted with how tonight's gone so far, Nina, but he's got to put it at the back of his mind. He's got to make assurances here in this final qualifying session and, by extension, the final race.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think now we can just breathe a sigh of relief. It takes the pressure off, which just means as there's less pressure, there's less, you know what I mean? Like, there's less pressure on you, so you can just go for it now and have fun. You can start to enjoy it.
Yeah, well, I mean, he can, you know, some people do their best work when they're relaxed, and they can obviously just hang loose and have some fun with the car. So, you know, maybe this will make Jacques Olivier all the more threatening as far as Stan Vliestra is concerned. But obviously, as far as Vliestra is concerned, the way he's got to think, the championship's gone. He's just got to let everything out on the table. Race for pride here at this point in the evening. And you never know, maybe the stewards will pick on something that didn't necessarily that they necessarily didn't think was right. So, you know, anything can happen. We saw it, of course, with Russell Reyes not too long ago, where he actually lost his place going through to the grand final at Ferrari World Yas Island Abu Dhabi through the course of the stewards room, and it actually went the way of Davlish Singh. Of course, we got an interview coming up later on this week with Davlish Singh as well, so make sure you stay tuned for that on the Ferrari Esports socials. Make sure you check out the social medias as well, folks. And also, if you've been tuned in, great having every single one of you with us here at the Ferrari HP Esports Series. If you've been tuned in on YouTube, big warm welcome to every single one of you. Be sure to leave a like and also hit that subscribe button as well. And if you've been tuned in on Twitch, big hello to you guys too. Make sure you leave a follow button and stay up to date with when we go live, because we still have a few America's region races still to come. It's all very exciting, Nina, as we say goodbye to the regional finals phase.
Yeah, absolutely. Still the Americas to come, so that's all still to be decided, and that'll be fun. And then we'll head off to the final, the grand final, Ferrari World Yas Island Abu Dhabi. And what a spectacular showing that will be, George.
Oh, that'll be tremendous. And the venue itself looks absolutely stunning. I've had the opportunity to look at a few pictures of it. It's emblazoned in red, as you'd expect, and obviously the prancing horse is the central figure behind as well. The familiar Ferrari badge, all lit up in yellow and black, and with red encapsulated around the LED lighting, and just the aura it gives is fantastic. It's all about racing, and that is what Ferrari is all about. And we've witnessed plenty of it. Jacques Olivier out on his fast run and flying through this circuit of the Nurburgring. No doubt feeling ever so relaxed. Can't afford to get too relaxed, though. It's all about these final laps. Nicolas Barriant also coming out of turn 13 very shortly, and on the run up the hill now towards the final chicane. 14 and 15 to come. We'll be looking to sign off in style here in this European region on AC. Let's watch him fly out to turn 15 now. The final corner at turn 16 to come. Let's see how he applies this throttle. Let's see where the time sits. Pressure's off now for all the drivers out on track. It's all about who's fastest. Barriant now going fastest with a 1:55.722. That's not the best lap we've seen. We've seen very early 54s. Lasse Albrecht going third fastest ahead of Lefrancois, and Jacques Olivier with a 1:54.4. And in return, Luca Andretti setting a 1:55.151. And Pantola third fastest, just a second behind Jacques Olivier. Tommaso Gatti down in 4th as well. Damien Sojourn just behind Lasse Ulbrecht. There is Stan Vliestra, still yet to put his lap down onto the table. We've got 2 minutes and 30 to go. Jacques-Olivier has come into the pits. Now, is that him confirmed? Is that him happy with the lap he has set? It's certainly very quick, but Stan Vliestra makes a huge mistake and obviously moves off to the side of the track onto the grass. At this stage, it's Jacques-Olivier on top, and he comes out for one more run with 2 minutes and 10 to go.
Yeah, that might be frustration spewing for Vliestra just there, just knowing that he's climbing a really uphill battle right now, and he's just made a little mistake there. I thought Jacques-Olivier was just pitting and being like, yeah, that's enough for me, but no, he just pit quickly, come back out, another fast lap, let's see what he's got.
Yeah, he's looking to lay down the foundations of what could be a triple dream this evening for Jacques-Olivier. And what a time to do it as well, on the cusp of raising the roof, becoming a finalist, a grand finalist in the Ferrari HP Esports series. That is what's on its mind, and I'm sure no prouder moment for one Jacques-Olivier. Luca Andretti will join him on the front row should it stay like this. Nico Puntola, who's one of his better qualifying sessions so far, is second behind our leader right now, with Tommaso Gatti joining him on the same row of the grid. But we cannot forget Stan Vliestra. Whilst he wasn't able to lay down that faster lap here in the bitter stages of those first runs, he will have another chance as the timer once again ticks down. Yeah, it looks like Jacques-Olivier will get around for one last go at the flying lap. Of course, his current fast lap of 1:54.447. He's just having fun out there right now, Nina.
Yeah, he's enjoying himself. The pressure is off. He's relaxed. And it's nice to just see him have a bit of fun. Vliestra, like Jacques-Olivier did in the first qualifying session that we had, he'll probably put in a good lap right at the end. So let's not count him out just yet.
No, not at all. Of course, Olivier's first, well, it was Stan Vliestra's fastest time of 1:54.169 that got pole. And when you compare it against Jacques-Olivier's fastest time, that is absolutely tremendous. Lefrancois currently sitting 77 thousandths behind Olivier, currently fighting over that P1 spot. And then there's quite the gap to Lasse Ulbrecht down in third fastest, who is very nearly half a second away from Jacques-Olivier at the top of the shop. Luca Andretti, who we're currently seeing on screen, also squabbling with Lasse Ulbrecht, was obviously fighting for that final podium place in that last race. And it was Nicolas Lefrancois, who currently sits second fastest, who ripped it from his clutches, and he's going to be feeling less than charitable right now, Nina.
Exactly. I think these two will be fighting as well during the race. Let's see if they are close together on the track where qualifying ends. But checkered flag has been waved, so everyone's on their last laps.
Yeah, last laps now incoming. It's still Jacques-Olivier who sits at the top of the tree. Will this be his second pole position of the regional finals phase? He took the first one in our very first meeting back at Laguna Seca, leading through towards race 1. He'll be looking to take it once again, end once again on a high, after starting on a high at the very beginning of the regional finals phase. Here comes Nicolas Lefrancois coming through the final few corners, getting the tail whipped out, coming out of turn 14 and 15 and comes straight into the pits. That's his qualifying over. He will not improve, Nina, here at the very end of quali.
Oh, unlucky for Francois. Not great showing at the end. Maybe just pushing a little bit too hard there, George.
Well, Jacques-Olivier's improving. He's nearly 2 tenths up on his previous lap. That will put him up against, well, you put him up against Stan Vliestra's best time of a 1:54.169. Could Jacques-Olivier go faster than that and set the fastest lap that we have seen throughout the entirety of quali in any session this evening? Around comes Olivier, now heading through the final corner at turn 16. Already a race winner twice in succession. A pole sitter in round 1. Will he go faster? I think he might. He'll take pole anyway. Obviously, we'll find out as to whether it was faster than Stan Vliestra's first one, but a massive performance on part of Jacques-Olivier. He will be on pole for the second time in the regional finals phase. What a performance. Unstoppable at this stage. And once again, misery for Stan Vliestra, Nina.
Yeah, poor Vliestra. Is he going to start at the back of the grid, George?
Believe so. Not ideal at all. And obviously that goes against really every plan in the book as far as Vliestra is concerned. After starting on pole ahead of our first race tonight, we can take you through the numbers. And I can tell you, folks, that it was mere thousandths between Jacques-Olivier's fastest time in that last session to Stan Vliestra's. It was a 1:54.169 from Stan Vliestra in qualifying 1. In qualifying 2 that we've just witnessed, Olivier set a 1:54.194. Absolutely minute gaps. That is approximately 30. As I'm looking at it on paper, I'm going to try and do the numbers live for you here. That is 25 thousandths of a second between the two. That is unbelievable. Now, update, as I said before, on Stan Vliestra, he will be starting P10, so towards the back row of the grid. His best time that he was able to usher in was a 2:54.589, so a less than graceful visit here at Nurburgring for Stan Vliestra ahead of our third race.
Yeah, unfortunate for him. He's just not had a good round. It's just been quite unlucky for Vliestra. But you know what, George? Him starting at the back of the grid makes for a great race for us because we can see him fight tooth and nail trying to make his way back up.
Well, he's got the pace. Let's see if he can use it this time when we go racing. Once again, a standing start here for our Ferrari 488 with Jacques-Olivier at the head of the field. He's got Nicolas Lefrancois up on the front row alongside him as well, who will no doubt be looking to up the ante on that P3 that he managed to pull off in race 2. Seems to have found something here at Nürburgring, something that he didn't have before in our last meeting at Laguna Seca. Lasse Ulbrecht will also be hoping for a strong finish. He'll be starting third alongside Luca Andretti, who's looking to take his podiums back after losing out to Lefrancois in our previous race. Watch out for Nico Puntola in the midfield. Tommaso Gatti as well. I'd imagine there's going to be some fireworks further back when Vliestra gets at it. A lot of tension here, Nina.
A lot of tension. Vliestra has to be careful not to pick up too many penalties, or any penalties if that, as he's making his way through the grid, as we saw with Russell Reyes when he was making his way back up. Unfortunately, he got penalised post-race. So yes, we want fun racing, but let's keep it clean.
Let's keep it clean indeed. At this stage, obviously, Jacques-Olivier in control. He's been jumping off the line quickly all night long. You'll be hoping that this continues here this time around at the Nürburgring. All 6 lights are indeed lit. And it's pedal to the metal, and it's go, 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 go. Great start from Jacques-Olivier. He's got Nicolas Lefrancois alongside, who once again gets a sloppy start, as he did in our previous race, and is now being marched upon by Luca Andretti in behind as well, as they run down through towards turn 1. They're going to go 3 wide as they head into the first corner. Oh, big impact. Oh, my goodness. That was a huge, huge crash. Stan Vliestra was right in the thick of it as well. He's right at the tail of the field. Nicolas Barriant as well further down. Damien Sejourne getting picked up in all this too. That is an absolutely heart-stopping moment. Breaking point missed altogether, and a huge incident right at the very first corner.
Oh my goodness, George, that was absolute carnage. Breaking point completely missed. You go for something that might not be 100%, but goodness me, and that wiped out a lot of cars there. I knew there was going to be drama for this final race, George.
Yeah, the heaviest victim was Damien Sejourne, who is now 4.5 seconds away from Barriant, Nicolas Barriant, who sits in 9th place as it stands just behind Lasse Ulbrecht. That is 1.2 seconds between those two. Stan Vliestra somehow coming out of that in 7th place. Now, I wasn't sure if it was Vliestra's car that went up the inside. I did see just in the corner of our screen, in the corner of our monitors, we saw him dive up the inside, and there you can see the apparent damage on Vliestra's car. Let's have a look at that front left. I mean, I'm not seeing too much there, but the windows are definitely looking smashed in right now. He's going to have a look around the outside of Luca Andretti. Certainly hasn't deterred him from trying to make places here in this race so far. Nicolas Barriant and Lasse Ulbrecht going at it as it stands, but the white Ferrari 488 now looking to put the burners on here in this opening stages of race 3. He's going to go wheel to wheel, this time with Andretti as they climb up the hill, and Andretti's got his own fair share of damage on his car as well as they fly up now through towards the final chicane. Turns 14 and 15, wheel to wheel, they're going to go 2 into 1. Surely can't mix, and Andretti forced to take the grass as Vliestra carries on through.
It's so funny watching these two cars that clearly have some damage fighting against each other. Vliestra got through there. Let's see if he can make up any more places, George.
Some comparable moments that we're starting to see here between Marcin Swiderek and Stan Vliestra this time around. You get the vibe. The setup seems unhinged, similarly unhinged, and at the same time a similar move going through turns 14 and 15.
Absolutely, there's definitely some parallels there from this morning's race and this race, George.
Definitely, and already one car in the pits. Damien Sejourne having to come in no less, I would imagine, for some car checks. Obviously, probably likely some heavy damage on that car. Nicolas Barriant also making his way around. He's also got some sufficient damage on his left-hand side. You can just see there the smashed-in window on that Ferrari 488, and he's definitely not the only one. In fact, no, I think that's just the window open. It looked like it was slightly cracked, but I'm sure there are plenty of other cars that have suffered some difficult fates off the top of that run down towards turn 1. But Lasse Albrecht now at the rear. Lots of the gaps, though, starting to come in together. Albrecht only 7/10 or so in behind Nicolas Barriant as it stands, with Luca Andretti just sat in 7th. He's carrying visible damage on his front windscreen. You can just see the cracks appearing on the front end. But at the head of the order, Jacques Olivier in control. Puntola has actually managed to move up into 3rd place. We've got Nicolas Barriant now looking to go side by side with Luca Andretti, who extends very wide indeed, coming out of turn 11 and through towards turn 12. So the run down the hill and then uphill out of turn 13 towards the final chicane could yet open doors here for Barriant here, Nina.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see Puntolo in 3rd place as well, because, like I say, he was the hardest working man on the grid at one point, fighting tooth and nail in front and behind. So now it's finally starting to pay off. A bit of luck come his way. Jacques Olivier just going really fast at the front. Oh no, and he's gone wide at the back.
That's Lasse Albrecht, who has taken a bit of a detour. 154.725 though for Jacques Olivier, makes him the fastest man out on track right now as they now head down the straight. Flash of the lights here this time from Nicolas Barriant as they head down through towards turn 1. 10 minutes and 40 still to run. And Luca Andretti going very defensive. Outside run here for Barriant, who is certainly not going to be making moves from that angle. Of course, that is not the line you want to take if you want to get the overtake done coming out of turn 1, but it does give you that little bit of momentum coming through the latter part of the arena section. It will test the mettle of Luca Andretti here at this very early stage of the race as they now sprint down through towards turns 5 and 6, and then a trip down through turn 7 and in towards turn 8 at the hairpin as well. They're going to take the initial part, well, the initial hairpin that they're going to get. It's not much of a hairpin. Obviously, the bigger one is to come as they come out of turn 7 now. Turn 8 coming up next. Jacques Olivier now losing a little bit of time. Nicolas Francois bringing that second gap down now. It's nearly 9/10. So I must say, I've been impressed with Francois here tonight.
Absolutely, he's keeping Jacques Olivier very honest. Jacques Olivier has not been allowed to build that gap because Francois' pace is very, very good. And you know what? He might even try and go for the win.
He could yet, and what a way to end the regional finals for Nicolas Lefrancois. Good day for France, that's for sure, with the top 2 all from the French nation, with a Finnish driver currently sat in 3rd by the name of Nico Puntola. He's got Eduardo Blasquez just in behind, and Tommaso Gatti, who has been right in the thick of things too. Stan Vliestra trying to rapidly gain on the back of Gatti's car, as we're now watching Barriant and Andretti taking a very interesting line on the run up through towards the final chicane. Turns 13 and 14 to come, or should I say 14 and 15, out to turn 13 and then into turn 16, the final bend, before they then run down through towards turn 1 again. Now, Barriant under pressure this time, so whilst he's been putting the squeeze on Luca Andretti, Lasse Albrecht has been closing the gaps. We've got 3 cars now in close proximity, and I'd argue that Albrecht is looking all the more threatening as he looks to the outside coming in towards turn 1. We saw Barriant doing a similar thing to Andretti earlier, and just look at how pointed that 488 in red certainly is, and a fantastic move by Lasse Albrecht. That is never usually a line that's successful in towards turn 1, but my gosh, didn't he make it happen? And look at that, a very, very missed apex there from Nico Barriant, who now loses time hand over fist. Albrecht pulling a worldie at turn 1.
Absolutely, that move from Albrecht, I think, just unsettled Barriant altogether. He just couldn't believe it himself, probably. Well, meanwhile, while all this is going on, Vlistra's just gone purple, George. Even with all that damage, he's still putting in good laps.
Yeah, still looking really strong. And unfortunately for Vliestra, or should I say Vliestra, actually, fortunately for Vliestra, he's actually closing the gap on Tommaso Gatti. It's 1 second now between them. 6th place is certainly a less than idyllic scenario here for Stan Vliestra, but nevertheless, it looks like the championship charge is not on 1 iota. Riding on board here with Stan Vliestra, who is actually rapidly closing up to the back of Tommaso Gatti, who is looking for he's visiting every portion of this Nurburgring circuit right now. Getting onto the curb now on the run down the hill towards turn 13. Then a sharp incline. will take them up through to the final chicane once more. Vlistra, who really put on a show back at Laguna Seca, opening up his account with a P2 in the opening race when we went to the American circuit all the way in California. Here comes Lasse Albrecht looking to hunt down after Luca Andretti as well. Albrecht getting it all wrong on the curves, and that is a huge impact into the barrier as well. That's not a nice way to end, and that's allowing Nicolas Barriant to move on through. Stan Vlistra also on the attack of Tommaso Gatti up the inside, coming through turn 1. Visible damage on his car, but it will not deter him from moving up to P5. Vlistra still determined to try and maximise his points offering here in race 3, despite the challenges he has faced.
Yeah, and that's a proper racer, George. This is what these guys do. They want to get as many points as possible. I'm sure he's going to try and hunt for the win even, because that's just what he does. So unlucky for Albrecht, though. He had a good showing in races 1 and 2, and unfortunately just has not gone his way in race 3.
Definitely hasn't panned out the way he would have envisioned, and I'm sure he'll be hoping to come back stronger in the future. Dan Vlistra being one of those. Lasse Albrecht also. We speak about the tenacity of some of these drivers, some of them coming from various different parts of the sim racing world. We've had Formula E Accelerate champions come in and visit us here as well. If we factor in David Mroczek from Poland, who isn't here tonight, but obviously a champion in his own right. And we've seen the likes of Alessandro Ottaviani, who has competed at the highest level as well, competing in Le Mans Virtual against the likes of Max Verstappen and Juan Pablo Montoya and Alex Palau. But Nico Lefrancois, who's currently sat in second, now starting to lose time on Jacques Olivier, who is once again confirming and stamping his authority at the top of the tree. 5 minutes and 25 to go, and the gap sits at quite a lengthy 1.5 seconds now. It started going even more clear for Jacques Olivier, but still it's French dominant in Ps1 and Ps2.
Absolutely, Olivier is just showing sheer and utter dominance, George. I mean, he was able to extend that gap in literally about a minute or two, and now it's, 1.5 seconds adrift. He's very, very comfortable. All he has to do now is bring it home.
Certainly does. Nicolas Barriant's also looking to make moves as well, also a Frenchman, but would love to get past Swiss driver Luca Andretti. Going to be a challenge, but nonetheless, it's one that Barriant is perfectly capable of. Obviously, it was Lasse Albrecht who was in his position not too long ago and was trying to challenge Andretti, but on the outset of turn 15, it all went south after getting onto the curb, the rear end stepping out, and he careered into the barrier, very nearly going into the pit lane as well. It would have been a very fancy way to get into pit road, but nonetheless, it didn't work out that way. Instead, he was met with a pretty heavy impact as we now watch Barriant close up to the back of Andretti once more. Within half a second he is right now, the black Ferrari 488, and chasing after the blue one that sits in front. Andretti taking more defensive lines. Do have to wonder whether there is some damage on that car, because it doesn't seem to be maximising its pace, and Barriant deciding to give him a few flashes just to get in his head a little bit.
Yeah, I love those games they play, George. It makes it very entertaining for us. I think Andretti is definitely carrying some damage because seen his pace in race 1 and race 2, and he's just not matching it. So I think he's carrying some damage there. Barriant is feisty. He's been feisty all race. Unfortunately, he just hasn't had luck in terms of his point scoring positions.
Yeah, and still continuing to blink those lights, and once again trying to send a warning message. Obviously not necessarily enough time in this race to necessarily warrant blue flags, because we haven't seen anyone necessarily lap, but getting really tight to the back of Luca Andretti, to the point that where he nearly lost his car altogether. In the distance you can see Lasse Albrecht trying rapidly to recover after heading into the barrier, but a big moment for Nicolas Barriant, who probably shouldn't spend too much time flashing and should probably focus on trying not to get caught by Luca Andretti's rear end on his Ferrari 488.
Exactly, trying to get in Andretti's head, he ended up getting in his own head, George, by distracting himself. It's a highly technical circuit. It requires a lot of careful thinking. So yeah, these guys need to be careful.
They certainly do. Coming into the final 3 minutes and 20, well, it'll be 2 minutes and 50 now, very shortly. Lasse Albrecht putting in some personal improvements and is now starting to go hell for leather at this stage. And why not, indeed, especially when we're coming into the closing stages of a regional finals phase like this. But Jacques Olivier still determined at the top of the shop, clear of Nicolas Lefrancois by 1.6 seconds. That gap has gone out even further. Nico Puntola holding on to third and could yet take home a fantastic result here for Puntola, the Finn, who has not tasted the podium just yet. Would love to taste it for a first time. Did not feature outside of the points once back at Laguna Seca.
Yeah, he's having a really good race in race 3, and he's not being troubled by Blazik behind him. He's just cruising now, so all he needs to do is bring it home. And I'm happy for him because he fought tooth and nail in races 1 and 2. So he very much deserves this podium position.
Yeah, Eduardo Blasquez has not been the thorn in his side. 1 iota, 2.5 seconds between Blasquez and Puntola as it stands. And obviously Blasquez has been at the centre of all the battles as well. One of the few Spaniards taking part in this phase for the AC platform at the European region. And now once again, Nicolas Barriad really getting close at the same place where he got it all wrong against Luca Andretti last time around, but this time no such trouble as they now fly up through towards turn 13. Might choose to actually open the door, heading up through to the chicane. Once again, Andretti taking a very interesting line on the run up through towards the final run through the chicane. And now turn 16 to come, heading through the final corner. But Barriant once more not in a position to strike just yet. But coming out to the penultimate lap of the race, the next lap will surely be their final one, Nina.
Yeah, exactly. And Andres has taken some defensive lines just to try and stay in front of him. So let's see if he's able to hold him off. One more lap to go, George.
Yeah, of course, the difference in points. P7 will garner you 6. Finishing in 8 will garner you 4. So 2 points the better going the way of Luca Andretti. And you'll be hoping it stays that way at this stage. Nicolas Lefrancois still 1.6 behind Jacques Olivier, who looks set to make it a triple crown here at the Nurburgring. And it'll be win number 4 in total as he looks to bring a positive end to what has been an immensely positive regional finals phase. Has not appeared outside of the podium once. And Stan Vliestra, I'm sure, will be ruining the day he met Jacques Olivier. And now getting it wrong on the curb again, ever so slightly. Obviously that ferocious setup not really working for him, but he's on the tail of Eduardo Blasquez, trying to rapidly close up. Now remember, that gap was quite advanced. It was around 4.8, I think, at one point. But Eduardo Blasquez is going to look to try and go defensive. We're confirming the final lap phase here in this race so far. Stan Vliestra is still trying to close the gap. He's got turn 13 to come and then a run up through to the chicane. But all eyes on Jacques Olivier, who comes out of turn 15. I must say, he has been absolutely domineering. He has taken a successful pole position off the back of the start of this race. He makes it 3 in a row at the Nurburgring and 4 in the entirety of the regional finals. He finishes ahead of Nicolas Lefrancois, who makes it a fantastic second place, with Nico Puntola taking his first podium. And look at that, a spinala from Jacques Olivier to celebrate victory and his qualification through to the Ferrari HP Esports Series Grand Final at Ferrari World Yas Island, Abu Dhabi.
I think he's happy, George, and rightfully so, because he put on a masterclass performance. Yes, he was technically gifted the win in the first race, but his driving did the talking. He did not put a single wheel wrong. Very, very well deserved.
Well, it's what you do with the opportunities that are presented to you, and that's exactly what Jacques Olivier did. He knew the opportunity was there. It was there for the taking. It took a little while for him to get his first win of the campaign. Of course, we'd have probably preferred it to happen in race 1 or race 2 at Laguna Seca, but eventually when it came, he took the cork out of the bottle, and then 3 more followed it when we went to the Nurburgring. Jackie Stewart calls it the green hell. It was heaven for Jacques Olivier, and he'll be hoping to carry that momentum forward. Just look at these points. This is the confirmation, of course, not necessarily confirmed just yet. Of course, remember, stewards' decisions, these are provisional. Jacques Olivier, top of the tree though, 133 points against his name, and he is well and truly clear and ahead of Stan Vliestra. That is a 42-point gap, with Luca Andretti down in 3rd place on 73. Nicolas Lefrancois down in 4th on 63 points, with Lasse Albrecht in 5th place on 46. Nico Puntola in 6th place on 43. Sven Gilho on 37 points in 7th place. Eduardo Blasquez finishing in 8th place in the championship with 29 points against his name. Bottom 8 in this top 16, it's Loic Moynier in 22nd point territory, in 9th with Tommaso Gatti in 10th on 18 points. Nathan Maximan in 16 point territory in 11th place. Nicolas Barriant in 12th place on 9 points. Damien Sejourne 13th on 8. He is met with Alex Laho down in 14th place. Dylan Claver in 6 point territory in 15th. And Francesco Menchachi with 3 points in 16th spot. So there we go, folks. An immense title charge here tonight, but it looks like it's gone the way of Jacques Olivier. An utterly tremendous performance, dominance right through the course of the night. 1, 2, 3, it's a dream. Makes his way through to the finals phase.
Absolute heaven for him. And interestingly enough, he was quite hard on himself post-race interview in the last round. So I think he could be very, very pleased with how he came today. Absolutely showed out and rocked out.
And maybe some things for Stan Vliestra to think about as well, Nina. Maybe come back next time a little stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. Just racecraft, you know, maybe set up, works on his racecraft, works on his overtaking, works on the little mistakes. If you just iron out the kinks, he's a great racer, George, and I think he's definitely going to be a threat in the future. Yeah,
and obviously his base pace is actually really good. If we look at his, obviously how he qualified at the very start, I mean, you couldn't deny him pole position. He set the fastest qualifying lap that we have seen here tonight. It was still faster than Jacques Olivier's time that he had set in the second qualifying phase. Appreciate it. Obviously, it's by mere thousandths, but still faster nonetheless. I mean, if he can, you know, get that in place and also, by that same token, improve that racecraft, like you so rightly say, there are huge opportunities there for Stan Vliestra in the future, right?
Absolutely, it's definitely not over for Vliestra. I actually just think it's just the beginning, George. He's got raw, natural pace. He's clearly a racer. He's clearly a driver. He just needs to iron out the kinks, and I'm sure he's going to come back strong.
Yeah, and obviously Nicolas Lefrancois, someone else who was really mightily impressive as well, taking a bountiful of points, finishing really strong as well. But folks, what a privilege it has been to have you along for the ride. Remember, like I said, be sure to stay tuned to all the socials here with Ferrari Esports. And of course, stay tuned in to the Ferrari HP Esports series. Leave a like and a subscribe if you've tuned in on YouTube, and leave a follow if you've tuned in on Twitch. But from me, George Morgan, and Nina J. Paul, it's been tremendous. As always, we'll see you again soon. Goodbye.